Stress is such a killer, isn't it? It wears us down physically, it wears us down mentally till we're kind of running on empty. And we try all sorts of things to keep going, and we caffeinate and we sugar up and all that sort of stuff. But what happens if there was a really simple solution with no side effects and that was completely free? Well, I've been researching the impact of nature on us, and I've just been stunned at the results it has, the impact on our stress, impact on our health, and it doesn't even take hours, even minutes can make massive results. So let me just show you what I've found, and I want to give you 5 simple ways that you can take advantage of these discoveries so that you can feel less stressed and feel more healthy and get more healing. If that sounds like what you want, then let's dive into it. Welcome to A Little Nudge. My name is Derek, and for the last 3 decades I've been helping people deepen their faith and explore faith and just relate it to their ordinary everyday life. And in this channel, in these videos, I'm just giving you nudges and tools that are going to help you live a deeper and a more meaningful life. Okay, so from the research, I've discovered 3 proven scientific effects of nature on us. And the first one is nature can do stress repair. So Dr. Roger Ulrich, he's had a massive impact on healthcare around the world. And in one of his early experiments, he got 120 students and he got them to watch a video. And it was a video of a woodworking shop, and it was about accidents where bits were getting cut and chopped off and pretty kind of horrific. And he would measure the impact on them in terms of their stress levels going through the roof. And then he split them in 2 groups, and as a follow-up they got to watch a second video. And so half of them watched an urban scene of roads and cars in a city centre, that sort of stuff, and the other half got to watch stuff to do with nature. And what he found is those that were watching videos to do with nature, within 5 minutes their stress had dropped to what it was before. Whereas those that were watching the busy urban scenes, even after 10 minutes, their stress levels were still higher and hadn't properly returned. And so watching nature repairs their stress. It helps them to recover from stressful things that had happened in their life much, much quicker than busy urban life. And that was just watching a video. They weren't out in nature, they weren't experiencing it, smelling, touching, they were just watching a video. Imagine if you were walking in a park or in a garden with trees and you could hear the birds and all that sort of stuff. Surely that's going to accelerate it even more. And so the first thing is that nature can heal us from the effects of stress in our life. We always can't always get rid of stress and the people and the situations, but nature can accelerate our healing and our recovering from that. And researchers have discovered the impact of nature, and I'll give you 2 more in a minute. What's interesting is they can't quite work out why, and there's lots of researchers that are going in different directions, and some things it might be about the smells or the touch. Some things actually it's nothing to do with the nature, but it means we get away from busyness or screens or other stuff, and it's irrelevant that it's nature. It just causes us to be away. But nobody's actually proved why nature has such an impact on us. From a faith perspective, it helps me to see things completely different, and I would probably have a slightly different perspective on it. There's a verse in Psalm 19 verse 1 where it says, "The skies, the heavens declare the glory of God." And for me, nature declares the glory of God. It gives you a sense of God and his presence and who he is. I mean, essence, glory means his essence really, and everything that's amazing about God, and it declares it, and nature's declaring it. And so being around it, we get a sense of God, even if we don't believe in him and not conscious of him. And for me, maybe that's why we get healing. I'm not sure. But here's a second benefit, how nature can really help. And the second thing, again, it comes from Dr. Roger Ulrich. Only this time he was just observing some people. So he wasn't making anything horrible happen to them, but he was observing patients in a hospital. This is in 1984. And he was observing 46 patients who had their gallbladder removed. So they all had the same experience. And half of them were in a hospital bed that had a window that just looked out to a brick wall of the next building. And half of them had a window that faced some trees. They saw some trees out the window. So they're all near the window. Half of them see trees, half of them see bricks. And that's the only difference. Everything else is the same. But the difference is just absolutely dramatic. Let me just kind of explain this, right? So the ones who were able to just see a tree, they weren't told anything different, but the ones who could glance at the tree, that they left hospital sooner than the ones who were looking at a brick wall, just because they're looking at a tree. The second thing that happened is they needed less painkillers. Right? Get that? They needed less painkillers, the ones who were looking at the tree. And a third thing is that when the people caring for them made their notes about them, the ones who got to look at trees had a lot more positive comments than the ones who didn't. You know, like comments like, Mr. So-and-so seems in good spirits today, Mrs. So-and-so is moving well, rather than the ones who were looking at bricks, more likely would get comments like they were quite upset today and crying, or they needed more encouragement. Don't you think that's crazy that the ones who are looking at trees, they recovered quicker, they had less pain, and their whole experience was more joyful of the thing, just because they were looking at nature? And given that research, listen to this verse from Romans 1:20. As you think about, like, why does looking at a tree compared to looking at some bricks make such a massive difference in terms of somebody's healing and their speed and recovery from an operation? Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what he has made. God's qualities, his power and his nature and who he was, has been clearly seen and understood and appreciated from what he has been made. That we get a sense of God from what he's been made. And for me, that's kind of maybe the impact here that we're talking about in terms of stress, in terms of healing. And so how can you use that? You can think about how can I position so I'm at a window that's got trees rather than bricks? Or how can I spend a few minutes just sitting outside? Or if you walk home from work, how do I walk home in a route that's got slightly more nature than one that hasn't, that's got a bit more trees, that got bushes? Or I walk by a park, even though it takes a minute longer, if it's going to bring me massive healing. And that's kind of impacted me. So I try and take a walk every day if I can. And when I walk, I pick the route with the most nature. I live in Manchester, so it's pretty busy and urban, but I try and pick a walk where there's the most nature. And if I'm reading, I like to read a lot, so I always try and pick a chair that's near a window, that's nearly got trees and nature outside. Just little tiny nudges that you can take. I mean, if it's going to make that sort of impact on me, then I'm keen to make them. Okay, so before I give you the third magical power of nature, could you do me a massive favour and click subscribe and like, and even offer a comment after this video? That would really help me massively. Anyway, so the third thing that nature does, so we know that it can heal our stress, it can heal recovering from an operation or whatever. The third thing that it does is actually protects us from disease. So the way scientists have looked at this is there's natural killer immune cells, so NK cells, that we have in our body that helps us fight infections, helps us fight cancer, etc. This sends self-destruct messages to tumours and to virus-infected cells. So basically, the more of them, NK cells, that's all you need to know. More of them, the more protected you are. And so all sorts of things bring that down and make us more vulnerable to disease, or stress, or aging, or pesticides. All that sort of stuff reduces the level. All right, it makes us more vulnerable to illness. And what they found, if you exercise and go walking in an urban environment, researchers said actually that doesn't affect our NK cells. It doesn't boost them if we're walking around. But then they had this experiment where in Tokyo, they took some businessmen from Tokyo. They were kind of middle-aged, and they got them out walking in nature for 3 days. They did 2 hours of walking every day for 3 days. And the results were incredible, that the NK cells in their bodies went up by 40%. Or nearly half it increased, because 3 days they spent walking for 2 hours a day. And you might think, oh, well, that's just a temporary boost. I mean, 7 days later, they were still heavily boosted. And then a month later, their NK cells were still 15% higher. So that was a month later. So like just walking in nature protects us from disease. I mean, that's nuts, isn't it? That's crazy. And although they were walking for 3 days, they were walking for 2 hours. So that was quite a commitment. We know from lots of other research that actually the more the better, but even small amounts can have a big impact. And so what I want you to think about is, how do I increase my exposure to nature in order to reduce stress, get those healing benefits, protect myself from disease? And you want stuff that's really easy to do. So you could just watch a nature documentary on YouTube in your lunch hour for 15 minutes. Idea 2 is you just change where you sit in the day. Can I sit near a window that's looking at trees or gardens, either at home or in my work or my office or whatever? If you can't do that, then how do I bring plants into my environment? There's a plant behind here. They've even found that pictures of nature around you can have a positive impact. The fourth thing is when you're moving around, maybe you walk somewhere or you walk home from work, how do you walk in a street that has more nature, more trees? They've done research that when people walk in an urban environment, between one with trees, one without, that makes a big difference. So you could even do that. And then the last one is identify the closest natural area to your house. So where's there a park, or where there's greenery, or where is there woods, where is there rivers that's within the closest bit to your house, and then try and include a bit of time there. Maybe on a Saturday morning when you've got a day off, when you've got a bit of time, how do I integrate that into my life? If you spot where the closest places are, then when you've got a bit of time, you can just go and be there for a short time. And these are just tiny adjustments, but scientifically proven to have a massive impact. And for me, it reveals God to us. We encounter God, we experience more of God, which is why it's so good for us, whether we're aware of him or not, whether we believe in him or not. And if you are interested in more little tiny nudges and about stress particularly, then you might want to check out this video. And I talk about my own stress, about the future, and a little change I made to get kind of rid of that. But that might be helpful. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.